welcome everyone. Today we will talk about chromatic scales. So you're probably aware of already how to play them, but maybe you wouldn't know that there is multiple ways of playing chromatic scales, and we will also take a look at which one of these is the most efficient and overall the fastest. So if you have never played chromatic scales before, no problem. I will show you how to do the standard fingering for chromatic scales, up and down. I will show you this in the right hand, and then we will take a look at some alternatives, because sometimes we have to play the scales very fast, right? There can be like an effect you probably notice from different pieces of the Romantic period where you have something like a chord and then a transition with a chromatic scale, and then it goes to a different section. So it's obviously important to know the fingerings of chromatic scales and such, but there are different alternatives and they each have their pros and cons, or advantages and disadvantages. So let's first take a look at some default fingering. This is the most normal choice. I think this is also the one that everyone who knows how to play a chromatic scale is aware of. So let's take a look at how this works. Basically, we start with the first finger, and then we have 3-1, and then 3-1 again, and then 2-3-1, and then again 1-3-1, 3-1, 2-3-1. So it's basically 1-3-1, and then eventually 1-2-3. That's how it works. Here there's an exception. Here we actually have to do 1-2-3 right here. So the 1-3-1 doesn't happen twice. That's the only exception. Once you get to know that, this fingering is very standard. And then you continue like that. So what does this fingering do? Well, basically it uses the thumb and the third finger a lot, which is, I think, quite normal and instinctively the first choice, right? It doesn't follow like a scale pattern like we're used from scales. Instead, it alternates between these two fingers. What is the advantage of it? I would say the advantage is it's very natural, and it feels very normal to you. Probably it also has a little bit of a trill feeling. You know, this kind of interval when you go with the third finger over, and you have the 3-1. That's also something you know from trilling. And then the 1-3 is also a stable connection. So that's what speaks for this fingering. What may speak against this fingering is that it's a little bit slow, because you're not using a lot of grouping. So it's kind of very small grouped, you know what I mean? You have 1-3, and then already 1-3 again, and then 1-2-3, then again 1-3, again 1-3, 1-2-3. So it doesn't leverage the potential of, you know, the whole hand. Instead, it's a lot of small movements added together. So the groups are very small, which makes it on the one hand easy to remember, on the other hand a bit slower in the execution. Okay, so there's an alternative to this fingering, which is basically, instead of the third finger, we also use the second finger. Apart from that, there is nothing different. So it goes like this: 1-2-1, and then 3. So as you see, it's not 1-3-1-3, but it's 1-2-1-3. There's always an oddity around here, if you see. That's because, you know, mathematically at some point you're gonna have to be with a different fingering on the E and F. But basically this fingering is 1-2-1 and then 3. Like this. And then then of course you would be on the C with the second finger because you continue with the third finger from here. Okay, and going down we have 2-1, 3-1, and then 2-1, 3-2-1, 3-1, 3-2-1, 3-1, 2-1, 3-2-1, 3-1, 3-2-1, and so on. So this is a repeat. So what do I think of this fingering compared to the first one? It's very similar, but it gives a little bit more stability with the second finger. However, I have to say the difference for me is quite small. I mean, they are both very similar, and having the second finger here instead of the third, it gives a little bit maybe more stability, but the difference is I think small. But you can try this for yourself. I mean, you know, fingerings, like Debussy said, right, is like a pair of shoes. They don't fit everyone. So also with these fingerings I show you today, you have to try and see which one works the best and for which purpose. The purpose is, I guess, also an important point, because not always will you have to play chromatic scales very fast. Sometimes you can you're required to play them in a moderate tempo or even slow, and to have a nice legato, you know. So it will differ depending on the use. Okay, now we get to the fast fingerings, and I have two versions here. One which I will call insane, not in the sense that it's insanely fast, but just in the sense that it's a bit cuckoo. But the other one is quite logical, and it's fast, and I think if you have to play chromatic scales very fast, this is the fingering you should use. So first we'll look at the normal one, the fast one, which is basically following a scale pattern. So you do 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and then here you have 1, 2, 3 again, right? Because there's no space for 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Now you might be thinking, why do I leave gaps? That's just to show you the groups, right? I will show you now slowly and just with the fingering blended in. Like this. And going down, it's basically in groups of 4, 3, 2, 1 and 3, 2, 1. This fingering is very fast, and why is it like this? It's because if you compare this to our first fingering we used, you know, the standard fingering, the difference here is you have much bigger groups, so you can group them and play them fast. When you have 1, 3, 1, you know, it's a complicated movement, but 1, 2, 3, 4 just fits like that, and then you have the 1, 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3. So the only thing you have to consider with this fingering is that you don't have a gap and accents, you know. If you do the thumb too slowly, then you will have a gap and you will have an accent. So I suggest you practice it slowly and you get used to it, you know. I think the hardest thing to overcome with these fingerings is to bypass your muscle memory from having it done one way or the other for, you know, a long time, but instead being open to trying a fingering like this, you know, which of course you should not play grouped like this. Although you can practice it grouped for the beginning, you know, like to get used to the groups, but of course later you have to work on the smoothness and then to make it smooth and to not make the fingering the main feature of your scale, but rather the tempo if it requires to, and the evenness, of course. So those are the two properties you should work for. So I do recommend this fingering for chromatic scales 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 1 2 3, because it's such a natural fingering and it comes from the scale fingering, right? There are, however, some more insane alternatives. For example, you could do 1 2 3 4 5 everything. The problem, of course, is the connecting piece between the group. But if the articulation or legato or anything accents doesn't matter, then this, I think, would be the fastest way to do things. It's just you do clusters of 1 2 3 4 5, and then, you know, like you will have to get used to the finger, of course. Plausible fingering for fast is 2 3 4 5, and then 1 2 3 4 5, and then 1 2 3 4 5 again, and then of course 1 2 3 4 5, and then 1 2 3 4, and then 1 1 2, and then you land on the 2 again. So I will play this again one time for you slowly with the fingering blended in. I saw this fingering written with 1 in the beginning, but I don't see why I should do 1 if it repeats and it goes to 2. So I will start with the second finger. It gives your thumb also the, you know, the necessary time already in the beginning to prepare for the E. And after that, it does get a bit crazy with a lot of 1 2 3 4 5s, but it's at least more plausible, I guess, than just doing 1 2 3 4 5 everywhere. Here, of course, the thumb goes often after the 5th finger, so the thumb position here is really critical, and I guess you will not be able to connect them really in tempo. It will be more like jumping, which is normal. You know, we do this everywhere. We do this when we play fast arpeggi or fast scales, of course. Ideally, we would want to connect, but often there is no time, so you just shift the position. But the connecting element still has to be somewhat smoothened in this fingering, because if you do like, you know, like this, it will be very apparent that you're not connecting them and an accent is created. So as much as you can, you should try to connect them, but of course you're not gonna connect them in the end, yeah? So it's just about assimilating the dynamics of the last note to the first note, and we have a little fly as a visitor today. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Of course, fingerings are, yeah, individual, so you should choose the one that works best for you. But I hope at least this video gave you some insights, and there are more fingerings, I guess, that can be chosen from, starting with 2 3 1 or something like this. But these, I think, are the most common ones, and maybe at least one of these fingerings is new to you or interesting and you can try it out. So please leave a like, leave a comment also, boost the algorithm, and I'll see you in the next video.